Well, we want to turn now to a very important issue, and that is BDS, if you will, boycott, divestment, sanctions efforts to isolate the country of Israel by reducing their economic support all around the world, and in this case, in the state of Ohio. And we are very happy to be joined here as we continue the show by Carley Riggins, who's a community organizer with the Akron Palestine Solidarity Collective and the Ohio Divest Coalition. Carley, thanks so much for being with us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Well, great to have you here. And maybe let's just start, right off the bat here. I mean, a very broad-based coalition, as I've seen it, has come together there in the state of Ohio to try to do some divestment efforts. Give us a sense of, the breadth and the depth of who's involved and who exactly you're trying to get to divest from Israel.
Yeah. So the Ohio Divest Coalition has been formed over the last 2 years. We have organizers from all across the state in the three C's, Cincinnati, Columbus, and Cleveland. We're also represented in Akron, Toledo, truly all over the state. And we're joined by organizers, finance experts, lawyers, truly people from all walks of life, working to get the county governments that are invested and the state of Ohio itself to divest the hundreds of millions of dollars that are going directly to Israel through Israel bonds.
It's interesting. Ohio had more money invested in Israel bonds than any other U.S. state
Mm.
before October 2023. I'm just curious, why was Ohio such a major backer of Israel? Like, how did that become a thing? And then I assume that's why it became such a major target for organizers.
Yeah, part of it is that there is a very strong Zionist lobby in Ohio. There is a group called the Jewish Federation that has like operational bases basically across the state, but most powerful, I would say, in Northeast Ohio, which is where the vast majority of county level Israel bonds have been purchased and are currently owned. And part of it is like there are a lot of businesses and corporations and billionaires who have vested financial interest in continuing to work with Israel and continuing to funnel money into Israel. So companies that profit off of oil, a lot of them have deep ties to Ohio and thus to Israel. And so it's kind of a combination of those two things, I think, are the big things that have caused Ohio to have such close relationship with Israel for so long.
You know, One of the things that I think is notable and important here is obviously we've been in this genocide for 2 years now, and people are looking for whatever type of efforts they can to end this genocide and to allow the Palestinian people to live in peace and self determination. Talk about divestment as a strategy. Why is this so important, and what can it do in terms of helping to put pressure on those committing a genocide?
Yeah, this is a great question. Israel bonds are unrestricted loans to the Israeli treasury. So these are tax dollars that are going directly to Israel and are being used very immediately for settlement expansions in the West Bank, for the genocide in Gaza, for the military occupation, for all kinds of violence that that Israel is committing against Palestinian people, and against the entire region. And so pulling this money out of Israel and bringing it back to Ohio is like a truly direct way that we can help the movement for a free Palestine, that we can contribute to this liberation struggle. We started organizing in Ohio for ceasefire resolutions at city councils, similar to a lot of other cities around the country and the world. And, those are good and symbolic, and they do have meaning. But I think that we made the move into Israel bonds because it was a material change that we could make. And so getting those millions of dollars out of genocide and occupation and apartheid is like a material difference. And that was really important to us.
Yeah, and I mean, okay, so on the one hand, the reason that you've got so many, state and local governments in the US, like with Ohio, as you mentioned, so invested in these bonds is you have a lot of pro-Israel lobbying groups, putting political pressure on politicians to keep it flowing. But I think it's super interesting that you all have been able to accomplish what you've been able to accomplish, driven by, ground up organizing. So can you talk a bit about the role of community organizing and coalition building? Like, what kinds of coalitions have formed around this campaign?
We have, it's been so incredible to see this happen. Um, I think, a lot of people think of Ohio as like a deep red state, and in many ways it is, but the the number of people that are just coming out from all over the country and all over Ohio to, to demand a free Palestine and to put in the work for it has been really incredible. Um, I think that we've seen one of the first and most strong coalitions that we've built is the Cleveland Palestine advocacy community, which I organize with when I am able to. And we have the Akron Palestine Solidarity Collective and the Cincinnati Palestine Solidarity Collective, and we've all been doing so much work around the state, and building this statewide coalition has been um, such a delight to get to do, to get to work with organizers that you wouldn't normally meet, people with experience doing environmental work or experience, doing anti-racism work or anti-police brutality organizing. And it's been really, really incredible to see how many of these skills can come together. And I think one of the biggest things has been like just being so persistent. Um, our our ability to continue to show up, to continue going to our county council or county commissioner meetings, even when they are miserable, which they really, really were in Cuyahoga County, especially, um, proving that we are not going away is part of the reason that I think we've been so successful. Because nobody in these coalitions, nobody in the individual organizations, and no, individual community members who maybe aren't affiliated with an organization, none of us are backing down. We're going to keep organizing until we win complete and total divestment from Israel bonds, even if that takes, decades, which it might, it truly might. We're all
Yeah.
very committed. And I think that persistence and, the Arabic word is samud, we talk about a lot, but having that persistence and having that, steadfastness to continue to struggle and just to continue fighting for this is, I think, a big reason that we've been as successful as we have been.
As you mentioned, of course, these are bonds, technically a loan. And so, when people who probably don't know anything about this maybe start to hear about it, and maybe it generally sounds good, I think some people wonder, well, what about the finances of the
Mhm.
localities and the state? Like, could this hurt us in terms of our ability to fund our public services or other things that may be? So, how are you talking to people about that aspect, which I think is something that maybe the uninitiated would be wondering?
Yeah. One of the biggest things has been in Ohio, there are 330 million taxpayer dollars that are going to Israel bonds right now. And this money could be invested in our schools. There are, school districts have bonds that this money could go to. And instead of funding war crimes, we could be funding education, or we could be giving this money to libraries. Or, I mean, there are so many things that we could be doing to make Ohio better, to make our communities better and stronger and healthier. And, uh, you know, even if you disregard all of that, Israel bonds are a bad investment. They're just objectively bad right now. They are so close to junk bond status. In Ohio, it is actually the case that if they are downgraded one more time, it becomes illegal for government entities to invest in them. These are as close to junk bond status as they've ever been. So now's a really good time to organize against Israel bonds because we have the financial argument on our side now more than ever. Um, and I think, it's not even just that their credit rating is bad. They are illiquid, which means that it's hard to move that money once that money has been put into Israel bonds. It's it's nearly impossible to get back what you put in unless you just let the bond mature and get it back that way. And they're not actually producing particularly high yields either. So the return of investment isn't even that notable compared to other bonds. It's kind of average. So just all around, it's not a good investment for Ohio. It's not a good investment for anybody. And we've really been telling people the truth, which is that like us sending this money to Israel is a worse investment than us not investing the money at all. Like it would be better if this money was just sitting in an investment portfolio somewhere and not going somewhere where there's not actually a guarantee that we're going to get this money back. There's not actually a guarantee that this is going to go well. So I think that having that information on like the actual finances that are going on behind the scenes is really important as well.
Yeah, and I'm curious, with all that you all have accomplished, which is really great. Have you faced any backlash? Like, what have been maybe the biggest obstacles as you've moved forward with this campaign?
What a wonderful question. So far, we've been really having a ton of success at the county level. Almost every single county that has had a bond mature has chosen not to reinvest. So historically, what has happened in Ohio is that a county will invest $1 million, they'll set it for a 5-year bond, and then in 5 years, they just immediately reinvest it, do the same thing over and over again. And because divestment is so difficult with Israel bonds, we've just been calling for don't reinvest when the bonds mature. Just stop reinvesting. And in almost every single county that we've met with treasurers, we've gone to these public meetings, we've done protests and demonstrations and all kinds of disruptions. We've won in all of them except one county. And that county is clearly the outlier. And even other officials that we've talked to have been like, I don't know why they would do that. That was a really bad decision. So at the county level, we're doing truly very well. And the only place that we have not been able to win so far is at the state level. And that is because our current state treasurer, Robert Sprague, is very deeply invested in Zionism, both in Israel bonds, like literally invested, and also just like as a careerist politician, he's very interested in keeping his relationship with Israel bonds and the Development Corporation for Israel, which is the group that issues those bonds. Keeping like himself in their goodwill has been very beneficial to his career, and he wants to continue to keep himself there. So we just had a bond mature at the state level on September 1st, and he reinvested that $10 million bond. And it's truly just him who's reinvesting, even though he knows it's a bad investment. We all know it's a bad investment. He is putting his own career interests above the interests of the people of Ohio. And we are working as hard as we can to push back against it. And I think part of that is making people aware of how bad these bonds are for us and what kind of atrocities these bonds are going towards. And I think that is like our biggest fight going forward.
Well, I'd like to think that there are a number of people in Ohio watching us right now. So, for those who are in Ohio who might be watching, and this is the first time they are hearing about this divestment campaign, and perhaps they want to learn more, where should they go? Who should they contact?
Yeah, we are on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, sort of, X, whatever, at Ohio Divest. And you can, follow us. We share all of the counties invested. There are 15 counties in Ohio invested. And you can send a message if you are in another state and you want to look into divestment from Israel bonds. We'd be happy to help out. And I think the best way to get involved is just messaging the Ohio Divest account, and we'll get someone in contact and try and help out.
hmm Well, Carley Riggins from the Ohio Divest Coalition, we really, really appreciate you joining us here on the Freedom Side.
Thank you so much for having me.